Hello, welcome back to my class series on Indian knowledge system. And now I'm on to module 2, first part of module 2. Module 2 also it's lengthy module. As per the textbook, I'm not leaving any point. I'm covering the points given in the textbook completely, so that coming years when they revise it, students should not miss any of the topic. Okay, so module 2, that is on uh, okay, module 2, it is on the uh, humanities and science, how the traditional knowledge affects. So before that, this is my YouTube channel, My Intuition 4865. Please do subscribe the YouTube channel and support me for the effort which I am taking. Okay, so this is the syllabus which is given for module 2 or unit 2. Linguistics, number measurements, mathematics, chemistry, physics, art, astronomy, astrology, craft and trade in India, and engineering and technology. How it is, how it was flourished during the traditional knowledge system of India. Okay, now first point, that is linguistic. Linguistic, in this I am covering the components of a language, Panini's work on Sanskrit grammar, phonetics in Sanskrit, patterns in Sanskrit vocabulary, computational concepts in Ashtadhyayi, and logic for sentence construction, importance of verbs, role of Sanskrit in natural language processing, whatever given in the textbook, I have condensed it. Okay, so first point, that is what is the introduction to the linguistics. So Panini's work, it is considered, Panini, that is Rishi Panini, his work is considered as one of the finest achievements in the field of linguistics and even the phonetics, which marked a very significant contribution to the study of language in a very systematic way. A Buddhist monk from the Sri Lanka, he wrote a manuscript in this leaf, not leaf, the wooden this one. It was in 1663, named Drupavatra, and it is again a grammatical textbook based on Panini's grammar. So language, it is a key for expressing the complex ideas effectively, and even the growth of the scientific growth or the collaboration with other can also rely on mainly on the language. So now how it is relevant to the present or the modern day. Here we are in the field of artificial intelligence, natural language processing, and it necessitates the deep understanding of the linguistic structures, highlighting the continued relevance of ancient linguistic systems. That means in working to work with natural language processing, it needs a systematic way of arranging the language. The modern language what we speak now, the English, they are finding it difficult because same word we have used for different meanings. Say example, if I say bat, it may be a bat, playing bat, or it may be the bat, the bird bat. Okay, so like that, this Indian had a rich tradition of systematic linguistic study, particularly which is evident in the work of the Panni, and later by other grammarians who contributed to inspire to the modern linguistic and the computational studies. Now the uh, components of a language. What a language, what are the components which is present in language which is given in the book. So language, it is not something which says that or which stays for a longer or time. It will be changing. It changes from time to time as time goes on. And for example, the English which is used by the Shakespeare, the William Shakespeare, which was in 15,000 1500 or 1500 ESV, that sounds very different from the English that we speak today. And that's why many people find it his writings very hard to understand. So the same thing happens in other languages also. For example, the ancient text which is written in Sanskrit, like the Ramayana or Mahabharata, which can be very hard to read even for those who also knew the modern Sanskrit, because the words are and the styles are old and they are not in regular use. Also, the language changes across the places. For example, the English which is used in British English and the American English, we know that there are many differences, how the words are spoken and how it's spelled, and even how the sentences are articulated or how the sentences are made. So this can sometimes lead to a confusion when people from different countries talk to each other. So, understanding how the language changes both over time and across the place, it is very important. So, it helps us to understand or better understand the people both from the past and from the other parts of the world. So, every language has its own rules, its grammar, the word forms, and sentence patterns. Learning these rules will help us to use the language in a correctly or in a strong way. For example, if someone is learning Hindi, knowing the grammar will help him to speak and write it in a right way. The studying how language is built is also will help us to pass the knowledge from one generation to the next generation. So this is very important in stories, in songs or books which are passed down by the word of mouth or written, which is written a long time ago. So even small mistakes in understanding will change the entire meaning. And finally, knowing the language structure will make the communication very clear and very accurate, and it will help the people to say what they meant, and it will help the others to understand what they said. Okay. Now we'll move on to the next slide. We have Vyakarana and the Ashtadhyayi of Panini. Okay, so in olden times, the language was more than just a tool for talking. It was considered or it was seen as a holy subject, a respectful subject. One of the sixth important part of the Veda, which is called the Vedangas, that is the Vyakarana. Okay, so this part of Vedangas, it focuses on grammar and how the Sanskrit language it will work. Why it is so important? Because the Vedas are full of powerful mantras. Even a small mistake in how the word is spoken will lead to even lead to a complete changes in its meaning. So people had to be very careful with how they said the things. So the Vyakarana it will help them to do that by teaching a clear rule about the sounds, about the words, and the sentence structure. So we have to thank to the Vyakarana, the sacred text, which were passed down correctly from a teacher to a student without any mistake, which helped to keep the spiritual knowledge a pure one, easy to understand, and even now after thousands of years. So Panini was a brilliant scholar who lived many centuries ago. He wrote that book called the Ashtadhyayi, which means Ashta means eight, Dhyaya means chapters. So eight chapters. So this book is full of very short rules, around 4,000 are there, which explains the Sanskrit words, how to pronounce it, how to use it. So what's amazing is how smart and clear these rules are. They don't just explain how people used Sanskrit in the past. They also help create new and even correct sentences. That is why many people today say that the Panini's grammar book it works almost like a computer program, because it is logical and it is exact. So Panini's work was it has influenced the it influenced how the modern scholars they study the languages, not just in India but around the world. Even today, the people they study the Panini's book, that Ashtadhyayi, to understand the deeper and the beautiful of and the power of the languages. Okay, now components of a language. Language, it is the main tool because people use to talk, to learn, to share, and to connect with others. So it helps us to do the business. It helps us to solve problems. It helps us to teach, to make friends, and even work with the people from other countries. So if you don't have a common way to speak or to write, we could not share the ideas, our feelings, or our information. But for communication to really work, both the persons speaking and the person who is listening need to understand the same language. So this means knowing the words, knowing the grammar, and even a bit about how people use the language in their culture. So when we learn language well, we can speak clearly, we can understand others in a better way. So this helps us to build a very strong relationship with the family, with the friends, with our co-workers, and even people who are around us in the world. So language is not just about speaking. It has two important parts. First one, that we have receptive skills. These are about receiving informations. It includes the listening and reading. We can use these skills whenever we hear someone speaking or reading something to understand it. The second one, that we have a productive skills. So these are about giving information. So they it include the speaking, writing. So we use these skills even we talk to others, when we write messages or explain the ideas. So to be good at a language, we need to practice both the parts. Just like listening help us to follow a class, speaking help us to ask questions. Reading books is very it's actually great, but writing our own thought is just as important as reading books. So remember, the language, it is powerful, and more we use all part of it, the better we connect with others in the school, at the work, or even in the life. Now the next topic, phonetics. Phonetics is it's a science of speech, the sounds. So it helps us to understand how sounds are made by our mouth, our throat, and the tongue. So it also tell us how these sounds will travel through the air and how our ears hear them. For example, a letter A, it sounds different in the word A, means the English letter A. It sounds different in the word cat, and different in the other word called father. So cat and father. So phonetics help us to hear and to say these sounds the right way. So that's why it is so important for the correct pronunciation in any language. Though I am not good in English phonetics, but still I am able to differentiate those importance of phonetics. So syntax is another all about the ordering of the word. How we put the words together to make a sentence which has a sense or meaning. So in English, we usually say the sentences like the subject, verb, object. For example, say I eat mangoes. But if you mix the order from subject, verb, and object, like saying mangoes eat I, then it becomes a confusing one. So the syntax, it helps us to follow the right order, and will keep our the meaning of the sentence very clear. So both phonetics and syntax will help us to speak and write correctly. Without these two, we might be misunderstood. So linguistic is a scientific study of language, just like the physics or the energy. Uh, the linguistic studies how the languages it will work. So it took many years, or if you look at many areas, how sounds work in a language, how words are built from smaller parts, or how the sentences are created or made, what words and sentences it means, and even the how we use the language in a different situation. These are different. So linguistic help us to understand the languages in a better way, and it's useful in many fields like the artificial intelligence, or in teaching, or in saving the old languages, and or even improving the how the humans and the computers will can talk to each other. So whether you are reading a story, or writing a message, or learning a new language, or even training a robot to talk, no? The linguistic is the it is there, and it quietly helping in the background. Now we'll move on to the next slide, that is Panini's contribution to the Sanskrit. Uh, in our olden days, the sacred book of India called the Vedas, they were not written down actually. Instead, they were passed from a teacher to a student by the word of mouth. So this needed the people to very accurately or accurate in their pronunciation and understanding of words. To make sure the Vedas are kept safe and are unchanged, the language studies were made a big part of education. Three important subjects help with this, that is Shiksha, Nirukta, and Vyakarana. Shiksha taught how to pronounce sounds correctly. Nirukta, it explains what words mean and where they came from. And Vyakarana, this is the grammar and the rules to form the correct words and sentences. So together these help the students to remember the Vedas perfectly. And learning Sanskrit was not just for a scholar, it was needed to study the India's old knowledge, the traditional Indian knowledge system, from spiritual ideas to the science as well as to the philosophy. And now to the second part, the significance of the Panini's work, the Ashtadhyayi. It has 3983 short rules which is written in Sanskrit, and it is arranged neatly in 8 chapters, and each with the 4 parts. So this book, it doesn't just explain how the Sanskrit was used, it shows how to use it perfectly. The word Samskrita, it itself means it refined, or well formed, and Panini helped to give the language the polished form. So he studied the earlier grammar methods, he improved them, and gave us a complete and a clear system for understanding and using Sanskrit. So even today, Panini's work, it is studied by the language experts, the computer scientists, and the students all over the world. Not only Panini, it is called the Trimuni legacy. Panini was not alone in this grammatical work studies, or the Ashtadhyayi. After him, two other great scholars, they also made very important contributions. After Panini, the first came was Katayana, around 4th century BCE. He wrote short notes called Vartigas, to explain some of the tricky parts of the Panini's Ashtadhyayi rule. After that came the Patanjali. which is around the 2nd century of BCE, and he wrote a book called the Mahabhasya. Mahabhasya means a great commentary. It carefully studied the work of both Panini as well as the Kakatayana. So these three great people, or the wise men, the Panini, Katayana, and Patanjali, they were known together as the three munis, or three sages. So they created a very strong base for Sanskrit grammar. Even today, their work is respected and it is studied for the deep knowledge and as well as for the clear logic. Panini's system is special for many reasons, because it is very logical. It has very few exceptions, unlike modern languages like English, which often break their own grammatical rules. So his rules, Panini's rules called sutras, are very short and easy to remember. It was useful in ancient time when most learning was done by memory and not from the books. So his system is also generative, which means it can be used to create new words, even for the modern ideas that what we have. So Sanskrit can still grow and it can stay useful today. So finally, his grammar is modular, which means that every word is made by putting together a root and a suffix. For example, the word gachati, which means goes, he or she goes, it is made from the word gak, means go, gach, which means go, and the special suffix which shows tense as well as the person. So this style makes the Sanskrit very easy to understand and very easy to teach, and also it shows how brilliant and how forward thinker was Panini during that time. Moving to the next slide, relevance to the modern linguistic language and the NLP. Even though the Panini's Ashtadhyayi, the grammar book, is over around 2000 years old, it is still very useful today because we are in the world of computers, and the machine learning part is introduced. So Panini's rule, it works like computer programs. They follow a very clear the logic called the if-then logic, just like the algorithms. That's why the scientists working in the natural language processing, also called the NLP, they study the Panini's work. NLP is a part of the artificial intelligence which helps the machines to understand and use the human languages. So Sanskrit, say, thanks to the Panini's system, which is great for creating the new words, and it is helpful when we need words for modern inventions like over the internet or the drone or smartphone. So the language can grow and can stay useful even today. So before the British, they changed, that is during 1800 year, that is when India's schools were focused on Sanskrit grammar. But this wasn't only about religion, it was a way to pass down the knowledge very clearly and with the full correctness. So subjects like the medicines or astronomy, subjects like law, philosophy, which are all used Sanskrit only. So learning grammar, which helped the students to think in a logical and in an organized way. So the Panini's method, it trained the mind like maths or science, which it does today. So even now, if someone wants to fully understand the Sanskrit, India's old knowledge system, they must study the Panini's grammar. Okay, moving to next slide. Phonetics in Sanskrit. We'll see some of the examples in the coming slides. So what is phonetics? Phonetics, it is a scientific study of the sounds in human language. It explores how we pronounce the sounds using our the vocal organs like the tongue, lips, even throat, and even using teeth also. So these sounds are they are heard and they are interpreted, and how they are represented in writing, that is all called phonetics. So by understanding the phonetics, we can learn the correct pronunciation, and we can understand how every sound is formed inside the human body. So why phonetic is important in Sanskrit? Because Sanskrit, not unlike the modern language, it was the primarily spoken, and it was passed on orally for thousands of years. The Vedas, the oldest sacred scripts of India, they were never originally written down. They were memorized, and they were passed from a guru, a teacher, to a shishya, a student. So this is the system. Even the smallest mispronunciation could completely alter the meaning of the mantras or the verse, or it reduces or it will reverse its spiritual power as well as the knowledge which it transfers. So perfect pronunciation supported by a deep phonetic study, it was very essential. Next slide. The UNESCO, even the it is a very significant recognition by the UNESCO, which has honored the oral tradition of our Vedic chanting, especially the phonetic methods which is used to preserve it as an intangible cultural heritage of humanity. So this distinction, it highlights the analyzing the amazing precision and the clarity of the Vedic chants, which have been passed down through generations without any changes, and we have to thank to the careful use of the phonetics. Now let's talk about the Shiksha, which is an ancient discipline in Sanskrit which deals with the phonetics. So Shiksha is one of the 6 Vedangas, or the limbs of the Vedas, which teaches how to pronounce the sounds correctly, and focusing on the aspects of aspects like the tone, the duration, the nasal sounds. Important texts like the Rigveda, Pratisakya, and the Taittiriya Pratisakya, they provide the detailed rules for pronunciation, which help to preserve the tradition across the generations. The Panini's Ashtadhyayi and the supplementary work, which is called the Paniniya Shiksha, which laid the groundwork for understanding how sounds are formed and how they are used in language. So this recognition by UNESCO for the Vedic chanting and the phonetic underscores the lasting value of these traditions and their importance in preserving our cultural heritage. The 6 sounds, or the sound locations, or the sthanas. Panini only identified the 6 precise places in the mouth, and even the head where the sounds it comes from. First, the throat, the kantha, like the sounds like a, which comes from deep in the throat, or the palate, the talu, like the sounds like cha, it produces at the top of the mouth, cha. Then comes the teeth, the danta, the word like the ta, where the tongue it touches the teeth. Then comes the lips, the osta, like the word like pa, where the lips comes together. Then comes the nasal means the nasa, like the na. These sounds passes through the nose. Then comes the cerebral, that the murdha, like the ta, where the tongue it curls back, ta. So for example, say even if you say ka, and we can feel the vibrations in our throat, and this confirms it's a throat sound. Next we can see the vowels, the length, vowels length, or the temporal types. So in Sanskrit, the vowels are categorized based on how long you hold the sound, like raswa, That is a short vowel like a. It lasting only for one time, one unit of time. A. Whereas a, it lasts for 2 units, which can called as a dirgha. And even if you stress one more unit like it becomes 3 units. It becomes a extra long vowel, which is called a pluta. If you, for example, if you want to shout Ram, it goes 3 units. So the nasal sounds are also very important, and it has also two types. That is Anunasika and Niranunasika. Anunasika, it sounds that which passes through both the mouth as well as nose alike. Means when we chant the mantra Om, you can say Om, that goes through the nose as well as the sound comes through both mouth as well as nose. That is Anunasika. Niranunasika, that is sounds that comes only through the mouth like Ka. We no need of using the nose to pronounce that. Ka straight away comes through the mouth. That is Niranunasika. So this distinction, it affects both the meaning and the spiritual vibrations of word. In Vedic chanting, the pitch which plays a very key role. So each syllable, it carries a specific pitch. High pitch, that is the udata, and low pitch, that is anudata. The sliding pitch or the rising then falling, that is swarita. So these tones, they are much like the musical notes, which will help in maintaining uniform chanting across the regions and during these time periods. So when it comes to the vowels or vowel sound combinations, Sanskrit phonetics is very rich with varieties. Each vowel can have 3 lengths, can have 3 pitch types. It have 2 nasalities. It results in 18 possible vowel variations, which adds to the musical or the rhythmic beauty of a Vedic chants. So finally, the efforts which are based on the sound classification, which explains how much effort is required to produce certain sounds. For example, the Abhyantara Pranaya Prayatna. Abhyantara Prayatna means internal effort, or the Bahya Prayatna, which is external effort. Abhyantara Prayatna, which involves the tongue, lips, and the other parts of the mouth. Whereas the Bahya Prayatna, the external effort, it involves controlling the breath. For example, the Alpa Prana, the soft breath, it uses Ka. And the Mahaprana, the strong breath, which used in the Ka. So Ka is soft breath or Alpa Prana, and the next one, Ka, it is the Mahaprana. Okay, so this also explains the sound pairing, like Ka, Kha, Cha, Cha. Okay, move on to the next slide. Patterns in Sanskrit vocabulary, the words and types of words. Okay. So, word. What is a word? It is a basic unit which we use to express the thoughts, our feelings, and or even the action. Action is very important in the computer language when it comes. So whether the spoken or written, the words will give shape to our inner ideas. So in Sanskrit, the words are not formed randomly. Every word, it follows a precise rule and has got a structure which makes the language very highly organized and logical. Whenever the logical word comes up, then it connects to the computer language. So unlike some languages where the word form, it changes over time in a very unpredictable ways, the Sanskrit, it kept its structure steady and clear. So now the word formation in Sanskrit, if you see, the language, it builds the words in a very systematic way using building blocks called the roots and suffixes. For example, if you take the root kr, which means kr, something to do. From this simple root word we can create many relative words like karoti, that means it does, he or she does. Kartam, that means to do. Krita, that means done. Kartru, that means doer. So kartru, krita, kartam, karoti, these are all came from the root word krit. So thinking of these roots and suffixes like pieces, we can combine them in a different ways to form a new word with a specific meaning. So that is, in Sanskrit there are two main types of words, that is subanta and tinanta. The first one, that subanta, these are the noun forms which refers to people, refers to people or objects or places or even a concept. So they are typically ends with a noun suffix. Example, a name can be a Rama, it's a name. Phalam is a fruit. Nadi is a river. Whereas tinata, they are verb forms. First one, that is noun form, whereas tinata, that is the verb forms, which describes the action what it is doing, and it ends with a verb suffix. For example, gachati means goes. Karoti means it does. Padthati means reads. So these are the tinata. So how does these words come together? So these basic words or word formation or formula in Sanskrit is very simple. That is, the root or the base, to that add a suffix. The root, it provides the core meaning. For example, gum means to go. Gachati, that is a root, it has a core meaning. So the suffix, it defines how the word is used, whether it's a noun or a verb, or it has other grammatical features like tense or even gender. For example, if gum is a root word, to that ti is added as a suffix, it becomes gachati. He or she goes, gachati. So this systematic structure, it allows the flexibility and precision in Sanskrit, enabling the thousands of words to be formed from just a small number of roots. How the gum ti becomes gachati, that is clearly explained in the Panini's similar type of how the words are combined and how the pronunciation of the word, final presentation of word, how it comes. It's clearly mentioned in Panini's book, and it is a systematic and it has got logic. Now we move on to the Panini's view. He defined a word or a pada in his grammar, in his grammatical system, as a combination of a root and either a noun suffix or a verb suffix. So this formal definition, it ensures that every word has a clear and logical structure, and eliminating any guesswork of in languages use. Panini's famous work, that Ashtadhyayi, it shows how to use or how to make this Sanskrit highly organized. So we are you can see how the words are generated in Sanskrit from the verbal root to the verbal form, or from, for example, the root kr, meaning to do, we got karoti, karotu, kritam, kritva. And from the nouns, the noun basis to form the noun forms, like from Rama, the name Rama, it becomes Ramena, means by Rama, or Ramasya, that is Ramas, or Ramam means Rama, the name is, or the object form of that one. So from verb to noun, that is the doer. For the root word, the kr, to do, the word for the doer is karta. So So Sanskrit allows the words to change from a noun to verb and vice versa using suffixes. For example, patha means to read, pataka means the reader. So this flexibility in word formation makes the Sanskrit expressive and it is very unique or versatile. So now we come to the compound words or the samasa. Sanskrit is excellent at forming the compound words by combining two or more words. Okay, where are we? Okay. Okay. We'll continue. Uh, for example, some example if we take the Rama plus Lakshmana, it becomes Rama Lakshmanahu, means Rama and Lakshmana both together. Or if you take the example Ganga plus Puja, it becomes Ganga Puja, that is worship of Ganga. So these compound words it enriches the language without increasing the word count. And why all this important? Because the regular rule-based structure of Sanskrit allows the creation of millions of words. It supports accurate grammar learning, and Sanskrit is ideal for computational linguistics and language processing tools. And because of it, it is logical and consistent. Sanskrit is like a programming language, and every word has a place. It has a rule, and it has a predictable outcome. And the world is behind the Sanskrit now. Next slide, that is computational concept in Ashtadhyayi. Something which is truly amazing, how the Panini they built a grammar system which works just like a computer programming or computer program. The Ashtadhyayi is not just about language; it's like a machine that built the world using rules, just like how computers follow the codes. It uses exact rules, just like programming language. It has a fixed set of words and parts like the roots and ending, which are clearly listed. And we don't just memorize the words. Instead, we make them step by step by using the given rules, like following a recipe or a program. So it even uses something like functions calling other functions. Some rules refer back to earlier ones. That's called the recursion in computer science. And just like in coding, Panini's rule often follow if then logic. If this condition is true, then apply this particular change. That is what the logic. All of this shows that Panini's thought like a programmer very long before the computers ever existed. So the next time we think about of grammar as boring or difficult to remember, then we have to see Panini's Sanskrit grammar, which is one of the earliest example of algorithmic thinking in human history. So at the heart of Panini's brilliant grammar system, it lies something truly unique. Is the Maheshwara Sutra. And there are not just ordinary sentences or lines, they are 14 powerful sound formulas which list all the basic sounds of a Sanskrit language. Panini actually wanted a way to refer to group of sounds quickly and neatly while writing his grammar rules. So he used the Maheshwara Sutra, which groups together vowels and consonants in a clever and in a very compact way. So each sutra or the sound formula, it ends with a special letter which is called the it or it maker. So this letter is not pronounced, but it is used like a label or a tag. It tells us where the group ends, and this markers it allows the Panini to refer to a set of sounds using shortcuts in his grammar rule. Instead of writing all the letters again and again, he just says the sounds from say R to U, which everyone knows how many words or letters are there. So it's like how we use folders, how we use the labels in a computer, and we arrange it in a neat, a fast and organized way. So this is the brilliant method which helps. The groups which sounds smartly, the write grammar rules very compactly and build the memory aids or the mnemonics for students and the scholars. So the Maheshwara Sutra, they said to have come from the Lord Shiva's drum, the Damaru, at the end of the uh, his dance. That's why they are called Maheshwara Sutra or Maheshwara. Yeah, Maheshwara Sutra. Maheshwara means Shiva, the great Lord. So next time when we think about languages and grammar, we have to remember that behind the science of Sanskrit sounds like a beautiful mix of logic and tradition. We have to thank the Panini and the Maheshwara Sutra. Now, some of the rules, examples we'll see. Uh, the algorithmic rule processing. So the grammar which works like a program, how it works. He wrote around 4,000 short rules called the sutras, and each sutra it worked like a line of code. And how it works step by step. So if we start with an input, we may be a root word. So then we have to check which rule it matches, and we have to apply the rule and change the word. Sometimes we apply another rule and maybe another one, just like a loop in the programming, and we stop until there are no more changes needed, and it ends a perfect way that we expected or the word or the sentence. This is just like how the computer runs in a program or it compiles the code. For example, uh, the Rama to Ramayana, the word becomes the Rama. If we want to say by Rama in Sanskrit, it becomes Ramayana. So there are steps you have to add. The Panini's rule it says we must add ena for the instrumental singular. So we have to get the Rama plus ena, and we have to make the changes with more rules, which will change the base word whenever the end word comes, and applying the guna sandhi, which smooths the sound, because it is now Rama plus ena, Ramayana. We have to smoothen the sound by using the guna sandhi. So Ramayana it becomes Ramayana. That is by Rama. So this is the step by step way. This is a very simplest one which I took from the textbook to explain this one. That is the textbook that I am referring, not the Palini's book as such. I am not able to do that. I need time. So every step it is based on a rule. So just like a computer which follows each steps in a program. So that is very much amazing. And the Panini's grammar is not just a ancient book. It is a smart, it is scientific, and it is way ahead of its time. Now samasa, it's a compound formation and the recursion. Panini defined how the compound word samasa and the created using the recursive logic. Two or more nouns and adjectives. It can be combined to form a single compound noun. That is shastre. Shastre means in shastra. Shastre plus the nipuna, expert. If you want to say, it becomes shastra nipuna, expert in shastra. Same way. So the compound then behaves like a new word, and it can be inflected, it can further compounded with other words, it can be declined or transformed using more rules. So this recursive compounding is similar to the function composition of the computer coding or nested the expression in logic. Now what is a sentence? How it makes a sentence? What in Sanskrit the sentence is not just a random word. To be called a sentence or a vakya, the words must give a clear and full meaning. For example, the golden rule: a sentence must have a verb, the word that shows the action. For example, someone asks, "What did you eat for a breakfast?" Then just by replying dosa, people will understand because the I ate dosa. These are not required because the action ate it is understood from the context. So, but if only we say that comes, who comes, what is happening, such questions will come. Now we have to say Rama comes. That is in Sanskrit you can say Rama agacchati, which means it's clear. The meaning is clear. So the sentence it needs a verb and it often other words like who, what, or where is important. So the verb, the kriya is important, which is the heart of a sentence, which tells us what is happening, like eating or writing or going, and all other words in the sentence are also connected to the verb. Like Rama likhati. Rama likhati means Rama writes, writing that right. So here likhati is the action. Without it, just saying Rama is not enough. Then comes the verb, the kriya, and the doer or the others, that karaka. So in Sanskrit, we use the word karaka to show how other words they are related to a verb. The karaka it helps us to answer who is doing the action, and what is getting affected, what is being affected, what tool is being used, or where is the action which is happening. So these answers help us to choose the right word and which ends, that is called the vibhaktis, that is in Sanskrit. So in Sanskrit the sentence needs a verb and the other words must match it correctly. It's like teamwork. The verb it leads and the others support it. So the karakas made a table based on okay. So the six karakas: kartra, karma, karana, sambradhana, apadhana, adhikarana, and sasti. So these are all the one we can just note it down. I'm not going in detail. Already I'm tired. So the sixth one that is the which is used for possession or the association. Like if I want to say Rama's friend becomes Ramasya Mitram. Same way as if I say that it's my friend's book, you have to say Mitrasya Pustakam, like that. Okay, moving to the next slide. Okay, how many slides are there? Three more are there. Okay, moving to the slide, the flexibility. Uh, that is Sanskrit versus the English, how the sentences are built and how the Sanskrit is important or English is better, that we can analyze now. So let's begin with a question. What happens if we change the word order in sentence? So in English, the word order is very strict, we know. So let us take an example which is given in the textbook. A correct sentence is given: the fat boy eats the tasty food with the hand. Okay, a fat boy eats the tasty food with the hand. But if you change the order in that, in any order, say eats the hand boy tasty the with food fat, it becomes very nonsense. But the same sentence in Sanskrit, that Stula Balaka Swadu Bhojanam Hastena Khadati. Stula Balaga means fat boy. Swad Bhojanam means tasty food. Hastena Khatati. Hastena means hand. Khatati means eating with the hand. The meaning is that. Even if you mix the word in order, Swad Bhojanam Stula Balaga Hastena Khatati. Again gives the same meaning. Why? Because in Sanskrit, every noun has a special ending called the a case suffix. So these endings it will tell us what role the word play in the sentence, the word, the role of a word, and how and who is doing the action, and what is being done and how. So even if we move the words around, still the we can understand. It's not that what it means. So it's this. Now see the some tools which make it possible. That is nouns in Sanskrit. How many, one, two, or many. For example, Balaka, that is one boy. Balakau, two boys. Balakaha, that is many boys. Balakaha, that two count it. Okay, so whatever gender, the masculine or feminine or neuter, whatever the verbs change based on who is doing the action, whether it's I, you, he, she, or it, and how many people, one, two, or many. Adjectives in Sanskrit must match the noun in gender or in number or in case. For example, the Tula Balaha, the fat boy. Both the words it match each other perfectly in gender, perfectly in number and in case. So in Sanskrit, it is the word endings, not the word order, which matters the most. So that's why Sanskrit sentences are flexible, but still very clear and it is correct. Move on to next slide. Importance of verbs, actions, and dhatus. Okay. Why do we use the language at all? So that is the main reason, which is actually simple. That is to talk about an action. So what someone does, what happened, or what will happen. So in Sanskrit, this idea is very clear. So the most important part of any sentence is the kriya pada, which means the verb or the action word. So without a verb, a sentence is it feels empty. Say Rama eats, where eats is the verb and it shows the action. But if we just say Rama, we don't know what Rama is actually doing. Is eating or sleeping. Okay, so that's why in Sanskrit a sentence is not complete without a verb. So the verb gives the sentence life and meaning. And the words come from the dhatus or the root verb. Word, do, words in Sanskrit comes, we have to say that is from dhatus. So most Sanskrit words, whether they are verbs or nouns or even describing words, the adjectives, all begins from something called dhatu, which is the root word. It carries a main idea or action, and we can think about a dhatu like a seed that grows into many types of words. For example, if you take the root kr, that is true. We already seen that karoti, karma, karta. These are all the different words that you can connect. So these all grow from the same root, and it makes Sanskrit very logical and well connected language. So the verbs, the kriyas are the heart of any Sanskrit sentence, and dhatus are the roots from which many words they grow. That's why Sanskrit is not just language; it's a system, it's a structure, and a beautiful form of meaningful speech. Move on to the next slide. The synonyms, it's the same idea or different actions. Do we know that in Sanskrit, the one thing which can have many names, each name will tell us something which is new. For example, Agni, that is the fire word of, in Sanskrit. We can have many examples of the same word but gives different meanings. Vani is also Agni only, which comes from Vah, means carrying, Vahaka, Vahni, that fires as a carrier in rituals. Can make it as a Pavaka. Pavaka means pure. Word comes, that is to purify. We can treat fire as a purifier. Sushma, Sush meaning to dry, Sushma, Sushma, that is to dry. Then fire as a burner, Dahana, Dahana which means to burn. So these are not just random or fancy names, but words shows a different action of fire, what it does in that particular moment. So that is the beauty of Sanskrit. The synonyms are not just words; they are action in distinct. They are actions in disguise. Okay, so the power of the prefixes, that is the upasarga. You can see some of the examples. There are 22 main prefixes in Sanskrit, which are added in front of a root verb to change or to improve its meaning, which makes the language more both mathematical and rich with meaning. So let us take one simple root, the kr, and now we can see the changes um, can take the adhikaroti, that is take charges, upakaroti, apakaroti, pratikaroti, anukaroti, samskaroti, vyakaroti, nirkaroti. So these are the examples which are given in the textbook, which says that from kr how we can change the word with different meaning. Very meaningful words, all logically made. So Sanskrit, it synonyms often, it shows different actions, not just different sounds. So and with prefixes we can build new words easily and clearly. Move on to the last slide. Not last slide, one more is there. How the Sanskrit uh, it uses in it can be used in the natural language processing. The natural language NLP, that is natural language processing, is a special area in artificial intelligence which helps computers to understand and use the human language like English, Hindi, or even Sanskrit. And it brings together three things: the linguistic, the computer science, and the artificial intelligence. The main two parts are NLU and NLG. NLU means natural language understanding, and NLG means natural language generation. And why this NLP is very hard? Because the language is tricky. We human use words in many different ways. For example, I took the example bat. Bat. It can be a cricket bat. It can be a bat which is flying. The bat. Okay, so computer can't understand. We can understand. Humans can understand. The machine can't understand. Therefore, the language we need a language which the machine can understand. And now we'll see how the Sanskrit it will help in the NLP, natural language processing. Okay, so this is the important term that brought my this was it was to end here. That is Sanskrit. It helps in the language processing. It is very special because it is very orderly and it is very clear. It follows strong grammar rules with almost no mistake. It builds words from root verbs called the dhatus, and it uses the word endings called the vibhaktis to tell vibhaktis means to tell who is doing that or who is doing what, and it follows a smart rule book called the Ashtadhyayi, which is written by Panini, which works like a computer code. Because of all this, Sanskrit is very good for a machine to understand, and it's like a language which is just like a language which is made for computers, or who knows the computers were existed long back. For example, if you take the sentence analysis in Sanskrit, say Bala Vrakshasya Phalam Khadati, which means the boy he eats the fruits of the tree. If you break it, the Bala, which is the boy, who is the subject, Vrikshasya, that is the tree, which shows who having that fruit or the possessive, and the Phalam, which is the fruit, which is being the object, and Khatati, that is the verb, eat, action. Okay, so this sentence is very clear and it tells us who, what, and how, and that's why computers can understand Sanskrit better than and faster than many other languages. So handling the ambiguity in Sanskrit uses 14 guiding principles called Nirnaya to resolve the confusion. So Nirnaya Kasa. So let us take an example. Nadim Paya Pravahati. Nadim means the river. Paya means the water or milk. Pravahati, Pravaha means flowing. So it means the paya, it can be milk or even water, flows in the river. So now if you imagine milk flowing in a river, it doesn't make sense. So paya here must means water, because the context and the logic it will help us to understand the correct meaning. Because milk will not flow like a river, it can just make very small stream at this maximum to the maximum. So this is where Sanskrit will help. It's easy for computer to learn from the context. To make Sanskrit easier for computers to understand, the researchers have they created a helpful tools, which is the word generators, to build correct words from the roots and the grammar rules. They made morphological analysis to break the words down into their parts like the roots, the suffixes, and the prefixes. They made syntax paralysis, which help the computers analyze how the words they connect in a sentence, to choose the correct meaning of a word from word based on its context, to these tools will make it very easier for the machines to process the Sanskrit very systematically. So why is the Sanskrit is so good for natural language processing? Question comes, you can say it's very logical with a few mistakes or exceptions, which makes it easy to for the machines to understand. The words are built from the roots called the dhatu, and they follow a clear rules, the program, and the karaka, the theory makes it easy to understand who does what in a sentence. And Sanskrit is predictable, unlike languages like English, which have many exceptions. Even though the Sanskrit has many strengths, there are still challenges in using it for the computers. Like there are enough large data sets to help the computers to learn. There are very few tools for Sanskrit compared to the English or even the Chinese, and we need to connect the Sanskrit more with the modern artificial intelligence system. But the international teams, they are working on it, and the progress is getting done. Okay, so that's about this very lengthy class, which I have referred in the given textbook written by Madeva. Uh, I'm referring the textbook and giving the class explaining, because even it is even longer one, compressed it and given this class videos. Hope it was useful. At least you can take the uh, screenshot of my presentation and you can use it further. Okay, thank you very much for watching my video, throughout supporting me by subscribing, supporting me by forwarding this information to others, and helping me. Once again, thank you very much.